Howdy, folks. Welcome back or welcome aboard. You are listening to the Doc Owen Show, and we are glad you're here. Joined in the Hilltop Studios tonight by...
I'm a surefire.
And...
Uncle Bocce.
Full house, ready to rock and roll. Tonight is our inaugural edition, as promised last week, a discussion of the Alamo. A background on the Alamo, et cetera, et cetera. So tonight we're going to do a little prelude, and then next week we should be able to present some scholarly type information that you may or may not know. And we will take it from there. Not sure exactly how long it's going to run. We'll just have to see how far we get into it. Mm-hmm. And our logic behind that is we believe that the Alamo is a uniquely American landmark. It happens to be in Texas, in San Antonio, Texas, where we broadcast from. But it's about the United States, and
That's
I think
true.
You'll find that. And we're fighting a takeover by members of the New World Order type clan who want to turn it over to the United Nations to reimagine, reconstruct, and make it more pleasant for our little friends from around the world to come take photographs.
Key word, reimagined.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Yep.
It can't be good.
No.
So anyway, that's what has prompted us to dive into it, and that's where we'll still hit on an occasional news story, et cetera, et cetera. But the focus of the shows for the next 2 or 3, I'm sure, is going to be the Alamo, as long as that's okay with you guys.
It's fine with
It's
me.
your
We kind of
show,
said
you're
we
the
came
boss.
up with the idea last week, and everybody seemed like think
Yep.
that was a good idea.
Yes.
That's
We are all over the social media as Doc Owen Show, DocOwenShow. We would love to have you find us on Facebook, give us a like, follow us on Twitter. That's actually the best place to be because everything's connected to Twitter and it is instantaneous, whereas Facebook is not necessarily instantaneous. Everything gets posted out there kind of after the fact of the show, which means you can go to Facebook or you can go to our blog, docowenshow.com, and listen to the show in the upper right-hand corner, as well as in the same neighborhood on the blog. You can sign up for our intermittent but always enjoyable email, which we send out every once in a while. We have a special guest or something like that. We don't do it on a weekly basis. That's just not why we're here. That's just not the way we operate. But we do when we have a special guest that we're going to have on. We put it out there. And we have free, as in no charge, FREE, capital all 4 letters, apps for both the iPhone and Android devices. And I highly recommend you go out there and download that. Go to your appropriate store, download the free app. You can listen to us, our entire catalog, almost 5 years. We're in our 5th year. That's why it's Y5.09 on the title, year 5, number 9. And all of our history is out there, so you can go back and kind of follow us through following the news and delivering truth to youth, right?
yeah.
We begin the show in a traditional manner, very traditional manner, always in the same sequence. We are led off by Miss I'm a Surefire, giving us a note of inspiration that she has spent several days researching to find on a weekly basis. Then that is followed by Uncle Bocce giving us today in history, so a bullet point or two from some time in the past. And then I close it out with a leadership quote or an encouraging word, shall we say. So, Ms. Surefire, take it away.
And as usual, tonight's quote comes from brainyquote.com. That's BRAINY quote.com. And tonight's quote comes from a lady that most of us have heard of. Her name was Helen Keller.
Oh, yeah.
She was an American author, political activist, and lecturer. And she was also blind.
Yep.
And her quote tonight is, Although the world is full of suffering, it is also full of the overcoming of it.
Nicely said, and a good point to make this week.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Considering what happened in our backyard
Yeah.
at Sutherland Springs. Thank you. Good job.
Thank
I have a
you.
question for you.
Yes.
You always spell brainy, quotes, but you spell the brainy.
Yes.
We're assuming that they know how to spell quotes.
Yes. Quote
Because,
is quote,
because-
but brainy could go a lot of different ways.
Oh, okay. I got you.
You know what I mean?
That's your thinking. Okay.
Yeah, brainy could be, like, oh my God, how you spell that?
And Q's
you know?
always followed by you.
That's right.
So
quote
quotes is easy.
Quote.
Okay. I
Yeah,
got it. All
that's
just
right.
Want to understand the logic.
Yep.
Good.
Uncle Labachi,
Yes, sir.
what do you got, man? What do you got? What do
Well,
you
this
got?
is
What do you got?
November 9th.
What do you got?
and,
What do you got? What do you got?
Got something good. In 1901, Teddy Roosevelt issued an executive order establishing a naval base in the Philippines, Subic Bay.
Yep.
However,
Yep.
he had so much
Pushback.
pushback, primarily by the Filipinos, that he got just totally upset with it and said, screw it. I don't know if he used that word. But anyway, he just wouldn't have anything of it. Later on, it became...
Subic Bay.
No, yeah, well, it did. That was after World War II. They finally realized the significance of having a base there.
The protection it
But-
would provide.
Yeah, but
you're right.
instead of having that as the Pacific Fleet, they moved that to Pearl
Harbor.
Harbor. Yeah.
Okay.
So
So Subic Bay, according to Roosevelt's vision, was the intended Pacific
fleet.
home base.
That's correct. And now it serves as
And
a
it-
little bit less than that. Repair and
Yeah.
stopping
Yeah.
point. and
It's
all that.
still a huge
Oh, yeah.
U.S. Navy installation and base.
Yeah.
I mean that was. a
And they
big
won
deal.
that. They won that territory in the Spanish-American War.
Who they?
The Americans.
Oh, the Americans
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
Oh, okay. So good for you. Thank you. And what? So it was today. So it was November the 9th, What?
1901.
01. Okay. Okay. That's why I don't remember. This one, barely. This one is from. This quote is from my little book from the Optimist Club, and it's a quote from a Mr. Charles Lindbergh. Sort in thought process, sort of the same generation as Helen Keller. I think of them as in the same arena. Any coward can sit home and criticize a pilot for flying into a mountain in a fog. But I would rather, by far, die on a mountainside than in bed.
That's a good one.
Right?
Yeah.
In other words, go for it.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. Absolutely.
That's
That's
right.
great.
That's a good one.
So we've told you early on what the big part of the show is going to be about tonight. And interestingly enough, as things would have it, call it luck, call it intuition, or call it a brainy quote.
Oh, brother.
We are in the second week of the presidency of
Andrew Jackson.
Andrew Jackson.
Yes, sir.
And for those of you who would like to know the coinky-dink that I'm referring to, the Alamo, the attack on the Alamo, the 13-day siege of the Alamo events occurred during which presidential administration? Andrew Jackson.
That's right.
Bingo.
So it sort of all ties together if you're paying attention.
Yes, it does.
Right? Because the Alamo was in 1836, and that was the latter part of the second term of Andrew Jackson.
Correct.
And we'll see the tie-in because there were a lot of people at the Alamo and fighting for Texas, not just at the Alamo, but out and about and around from Tennessee.
Correct.
We have Texas and Tennessee are inextricably linked at the hip. I mean, we always have been. A lot of their pioneers came out here to help found this part of the frontier. So,
Absolutely.
if you're not aware of that, we will dive into it and help you understand during some of these shows. So,
Good.
take us through the second 4 years of Mr. Jackson.
Okay, I'm going to
Please.
take yes.
Take a little bit of a review. Bring everybody up to snuff. Pick two elements from the first 4 years
Okay.
that are a good segue, that are like critical to setting the tone for what we went through last week.
Well, it was primarily his first term was primarily, mostly primarily, whatever you want to call it,
Yep.
was dealing with issues, domestic issues.
Got it.
Okay.
Got it.
Andrew Jackson did not
Like his
get
predecessor.
did not get too much into foreign
Right.
issues. He primarily, I mean, he was a homeboy.
Right.
You know,
I got
so
it.
he and tonight we're going to learn a little bit more about him, but I'm taking a slightly different approach. Remember, I told you last week that we're going to have a little bit extra. We're going to talk about the founding of the Democratic Party.
Oh, that's right.
And in doing that, you're going to get a really good glimpse of what Andrew Jackson was really all about.
Okay.
Okay? So
Okay.
that's the approach I'm taking tonight. So
Was Andrew Jackson a Democrat? Is that what you're telling us, or what are you telling us?
Okay. In his second term, yes, he founded the Democratic Party.
Get out of here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, not literally.
So, but we'll see how that developed and how that came along.
What was he in his first term?
He was a Democratic Republican.
Oh.
Is that right? Yes.
I don't know. You the man.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And there were all kinds of splits going on in political areas, and politics now was taking the forefront. You know, the presidents up until now, you know, mostly the founders and, you know, the basic principles and things like that.
Right.
There wasn't, you know, so much to do with politics or corruption.
Well, I get the feeling, just to bring the audience up, through all of the predecessors, as you said, they were the founding fathers, they were the old timers, they were the guys that built this. This was their vision.
That's right.
This was their experiment. So they were more into implementation.
Yes.
With a minor amount of pushback and questioning.
Correct.
But there wasn't both sides that ran for the office were interested in implementing what they thought the Constitution and the Bill of Rights was all about.
Bingo.
Right?
Exactly.
Okay. And so now we come. Well, that's why we're giving this review.
Yes.
So and now we come to the point where we're like second generation. You know, we're almost like one group removed from the founders.
Yes.
And it's beginning to become more of a stressful environment.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Take it away.
So the Democratic Party, as a party distinct from the Democratic Republican Party, okay, it began with the beliefs and ambitions of one man, Andrew Jackson. And his nickname, Old Hickory, and he became president of the United States from 1929 to 1837. Now, Jackson's ideas and ambitions, if those ambitions were not popular with the American people at the time, there probably never would have been a Democratic Party. Because it's the issue, the basic issues that they were dealing with, and what Jackson was pushing, created the Democratic Party because he was very popular with the people he was leading for.
How did he get the nickname Old Hickory?
He got that in the War of 1812. The people just saw him as a very staunch, strong straightforward kind of person.
Okay.
And I guess that compares to a mighty hickory tree, which is.
Did he carry a hickory staff? Did he have a?
I don't
hickory?
think so.
Okay.
No, I
Just
don't.
Did
curious.
he chew hickory?
Yeah, but
Did he what?
Chew hickory? I don't.
Oh, okay.
okay.
Did they chew? I think that's chicory.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Chicory. Yeah? Okay. At one point,
Old chicory. Go ahead.
at one point of his career, he
digress.
moved to Tennessee. He was
Yeah.
born in South Carolina, but he moved to Tennessee, and he became very, very wealthy. You know what he became wealthy from? Land speculation.
Really?
And working his slaves, using his slaves to work the land at the Hermitage. Okay,
Okay.
because he was definitely a slave owner. Now, Jackson believed that he would be a good president, or he wouldn't have ran. And the Democratic Party did not even exist when Jackson came into office.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
It coalesced around the hope of obtaining, listen to this,
Yes,
the
sir.
hope of obtaining office by associating with Jackson. Okay? So we're seeing a great divergence here from what the previous presidents were concerned with.
Okay.
Okay? Now it was the personality, the thoughts and the ideas of the personality. And there were 3 major points of agreement. The first one was the continued taking of American Indian land with or without whatever degree of genocide and necessary to carry it off. Okay, so
He was for that.
this is what he was for.
Wow.
He was pushing. He was very, very American and very much on building America at the expense of others. Okay, this was a popular plank with both land speculators, okay, and the less affluent European American settlers, because the purchase of land was cheap. So here he is. He's appealing to a segment of our society, okay, for the purpose of power,
Right.
votes.
Growth. Right.
Okay, the second plank was the continuation of the extension of slavery, which made life easier and profitable for Jackson and his followers. Okay, so the third plank was what would now be called an expansionary monetary policy. What this did was it allowed the white settlers to borrow money as much as they wanted to buy stolen Indian land to work with slaves to raise tobacco, cotton, and other profitable crops for market.
Buy the
Now,
land from whom?
buy the land from those who speculated on it, like Andrew Jackson and his friends. Okay, he bought massive. He bought like over 300,000 square miles of land from the Indians cheaply, then broke it apart and sold it to people who wanted land, and he was able to get a lot of money.
But he bought it from the Indians.
He bought sometimes.
Okay.
Okay, as we expand this, you'll see
he
what
made
happened.
them an offer they couldn't refuse.
That's a good way of putting it. A good way of putting it. Now, there was a split between Jackson camp of the Democratic Republicans and the Adams camp, which gave birth to two parties. Those who followed Jackson was Democratic Party, and those who followed Adams, Quincy Adams, they became the Whig Party, which was new.
Right,
okay?
right. So as to divorce themselves completely from the Democrat Republicans.
Right, exactly.
It doesn't.
Go ahead.
It doesn't sound like he was a very nice guy.
Well, we'll get into
I mean,
that
the picture
a
you're
little bit.
painting is
Yeah.
kind of different from what I
Yeah,
had
yeah,
expected,
and I'm
to tell
not
you the truth.
I'm not
'Cause
trying.
he's like a folk hero sort of guy.
Yes, he was on one sense, but in the background, the man was really
Ruthless.
more for himself and for gaining power.
So now we know why there was a lot of comparison between Jackson and Trump.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So, in simplistic,
Learn something every day.
yes, in simplistic versions of American history, Jackson's victory is usually presented as a triumph for democracy over elitism. And that's what the Whigs came in. They were considered much more elite. Jackson was a farmer. I mean, he was a guy. Yeah. And so if you overlook the very real issues of slavery and genocide, there is some truth to that view. So people love Jackson, and that's why he won. But you have to temper that with the ideas of his ideas of slavery and genocide, as far as the American.
So what today we would call blue collar workers.
Yes.
You know, the mainstream American were definitely in Jackson's camp.
Yes.
Because they saw an opportunity to do better, to elevate themselves, to be a landowner, etc.
Exactly. People were attaching themselves to Jackson because of opportunity. They were attaching themselves to Jackson because they wanted to be reelected, or they wanted to be elected.
I don't think it's fair, and I don't think we ought to help the audience draw the significance, or help the audience to understand the lack of significance to the fact that he was a slave owner. I mean,
right? Yeah, that was
the economy of the time. We cannot impose our understanding, beliefs, and attitudes 200 and some odd years later.
Yeah.
To say, how dare them? I mean, how do you think they're going to judge us 200 years from now?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct.
It might be pretty harsh.
Yes, sir.
And yet we think we're doing the right thing.
Okay. Now, several states had by then adopted something called universal manhood suffrage.
Yeah.
The key word being manhood.
Yeah.
Which meant adult European males could all vote. And Jackson did best in the states where these people were. Okay. That's where he did best. And you're going to see how that affected the South.
Okay.
The Democrats favored extending the vote to all white males, all states, which was an expansion in their eyes of democracy. Okay. Jackson promptly fired most civil servants.
I like the guy.
Yeah.
All right. I'm in.
Go ahead.
I'm in. I like him.
Yeah. He did on that respect.
Drain the swamp.
But what ended up happening, though, is he appointed his loyalists, the people that were most loyal to him, and gave them those salaries. Okay, you see what's going on here?
I'm learning more and more about the comparisons that were made during the Trump campaign.
Yeah, exactly. So
who knew?
What ended up happening? He's created a political machine. Got that?
Yeah. So
see
far.
where the politics are going?
Yeah.
Nope, they're changing drastically.
Yeah, they are. Right before.
So that was
our very historical eyes.
Yep. So what he would do, what the machine would do, was then reward partisans for their loyalty, until the civil service was reformed later on in 1883. So that's what it was used for. Jackson's main achievement in office was the taking by force of remaining Native American Indian lands east of the Mississippi. So he was driving them out. That's what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
Their goal is to win office and use it to promote the economic or occasionally non-economic interests of those that paid for it to be won. You making the connection?
Yeah.
Okay.
So his campaign slogan was MAG.
MAG. Make America great. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that also another key issue, element of his political career. he got into the thing of when out of power, okay, when you're out of power, everything that goes wrong can be blamed on the party in power.
Okay.
Okay. People whose gravy train had suffered
Which,
have
by
to
the way,
decide,
we now take like a, well, duh.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily the case.
Right. They either had to switch parties or dig deeper in shallow pockets to get their friends back into power. Okay? Now, there were various strategies that emerged in attempt to regain power. These emerged most visibly in the race for the Democratic nomination for president, which still goes on today. Should the party stand for, in today's terms, New Dealish type populism, or should it pose itself as merely culturally different from those who were going to become Republicans?
I got the
Okay.
feeling, hold that thought. I got the feeling from my early, I grew up some of my childhood in Tennessee. And my grandmother was a teacher and had all kinds of really cool books. And she had a book on each one of the presidents, so I got to read them. I get the feeling from my childhood image that Jackson was, I don't want to say crude, but he didn't have the same spit and polish
Correct.
that his predecessors had.
Correct.
He was kind of a country boy.
Yeah, he
Is
was
that
with
the
an
right, do I have
elementary
the right
education.
image?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, the Democratic Party, led by Andrew Jackson and Martin Van
Folks, if you're
Buren,
not familiar, that's going way back.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
and Martin Van Buren, who was his vice president and successor, was made up farmers, urban laborers, and Irish Catholics. Those were the groups that were very strong Jacksonites. Okay. Now,
can
although
see that.
and although the Democratic Party was not exactly popular in most New England, because remember, New England was pretty much the Federalists. And,
Yeah, they were
and
Whiggies.
that's where their stronghold was.
They were wigged out.
But he did gain immense popularity in the states of New York, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and the Western states.
Well, sure.
Okay.
Because they wanted to push forward. Yeah, sure.
So the Democrats at this time, they strongly opposed aristocracy, a national bank, very much against it. They opposed programs which pushed to modernize American industry instead of family-based agriculture. And they were opposed to anti-immigration legislation and monopolies. You can compare that to today. I mean, there's nothing much different.
Yeah, I don't know
Okay.
about that, but there's a few points in there.
Yeah. What they supported was the Mexican American War, okay, which came after the Alamo.
Yes.
Okay, the expansion of farmland into the Western territories. Now, in the campaign of 1824, the system of nominating a single candidate had not yet evolved, but now it was coming into play,
Okay.
where they would have a party convention
Right.
and a platform.
Okay. So they were beginning to get organized. They were-
Yes. And I want to take a few minutes because more than I can, Dinesh D'Souza can certainly give you an idea of what was going on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So
So-
we said last week or one week we were going to
Yeah.
replay the interview with him.
Oh, okay. Well,
Sorry,
that's good.
I didn't
But
load
I'm
it
just
up.
going to go very quickly through here what
forgot I
Dinesh
didn't load it up.
D'Souza had to say. Contrasting what we learn from progressives today in education about the Democratic Party, their history was virtually uninterrupted history of thievery, corruption, and bigotry.
Right.
These are not my words. These are Dinesh D'Souza.
Well, no. I'll go you one further. Those are that may be the words of Dinesh D'Souza, but they're backed up by scholastic
Yes.
research.
Oh, yeah. I went back and checked some of this
No,
stuff.
that's what. So let's not. Dinesh says
Yeah.
Well, when Dinesh says,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
based on some pretty scholarly information back here.
Yes, it is.
Okay, I wanted to make that clear
did
for
fact
our
check and
young
check into
audience that doesn't
yeah.
know who this guy is. He's, he's a professor's professor.
So, of Andrew Jackson, he, not Thomas Jefferson or FDR, is the true founder of the modern Democratic Party. He wanted to set that straight. Jackson established the Democratic Party as a party of theft. He mastered the art of stealing land from Indians and then selling it. Jackson's expectation was that those people would support him politically, and they did. He was indeed a man of the people. There's no question about that.
The original LBJ.
Yeah. But his popularity was that of a gang leader who distributes his spoils in exchange for loyalty.
Wow.
Okay, that's okay. So if you go to the true history of the Democratic Party, now Jackson also figured out how to benefit personally from his land stealing.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So he would actually he was opposed. Okay, as far as his dealings with the under Monroe.
Right.
He was Monroe. What happened was the Cherokee Indians went to Monroe and said, what this man is doing is not right. So Monroe put pressure on Jackson to stop. Well, Jackson didn't want to have anything. He wasn't going to have anything to do with that. So what he did instead is that he in the background, he still did the things he wanted to do. Okay, and he told these Indians,
Yep.
you have two choices. You can either
Take my offer.
take my land,
Right.
or you will suffer the consequences. Basically, he just told them flat out, just do. You know, he was a tough man. So even though he was ordered by James Monroe to stop doing that, he undermined the civilian superiors.
Because there
Which
wasn't
it
enough.
was his duty to evict the white settlers, but he didn't.
Apparently,
He let them do what they wanted to do.
Well, there wasn't enough law enforcement. There wasn't enough law. You know, there wasn't to. I mean, you could reprimand, you could apply pressure on them, but this is long before, you know, the ability of lawyers to go in and argue the case.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true.
So basically, that gives you a good idea of what
Wow.
Andrew Jackson.
Wow.
Yeah, I know that's going to blow
That's
a lot of
pretty-
people. And if anybody out there
Did
disagrees
you
with
know
me,
that when
check me.
you dove in?
No,
I didn't either. You
I
know?
did not. I knew that.
I mean, my
that-
impression of him was he was country. He was
Yeah.
you know, he was a,
And he
kind of
was all that.
a tough guy, but not
was all
not
that.
all of that about the
Yeah.
land expansion, etc.
Yeah, well,
I
to
should have
this
paid closer attention to Dinesh's movie, I guess.
day, American natives
Don't like him.
they don't like him so much to the point that if you give them change, they will not accept a $20 bill because Jackson's on there. So he has that strong a reputation with the Native Americans.
Well, you know what? Good for them.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't know that. Good for
I
them.
didn't either.
So let's not. So in the big scope of things so far, did he wind up being? Was he a good president? Did he do things for the country that helped us progress or move along?
Yeah,
even though his tactics might have been,
yes,
shall we say, questionable.
There are many domestic policies that he put in.
Okay.
You know that were good, were beneficial for
So
the
let's
country.
don't close it out.
So no, I don't want to give the wrong impression because then I'll be considered a bigot. But no, he did good things. He was a successful president.
Right.
No
Right,
question
right.
about it.
Because that's sort of the impression that I had.
Yeah.
But I wasn't fully informed until this show about all the tactics that he used
That's true.
to get there, you know.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Okay, and that's it. I'm Uncle Bachi, UNCLEBACI, at DocOwenShow.com. And we'll be back again next week, and we'll talk a little bit about Martin Van Buren.
Van Buren.
You kind of have that's going to be like a 4-minute segment. Martin Van Buren, he just sort of fades in, but who's after Van Buren?
Skip him.
Was it Buchanan?
I don't know, but I remember trying.
No, Buchanan was right before Lincoln. Yeah, there was a bunch of them.
I remember trying to memorize the presidents, and when you're doing that, you try to get images of them and yada yada yada.
Yes.
And right after Jackson came Martin Van Buren, and for about like the next 2 or 3, they just sort of fade away. I mean, So I'm interested. It's going to be real interesting to see what you find. Because they don't have it, you know what I'm saying? Exactly. Nobody ever says, "Oh, he's like Van Buren."
No.
Who was Van Buren?
Was that like a designer back in the day? He made shirts or pants?
He made bags. He made women's handbags.
There you go.
Van Buren specifically, though, he definitely rode on the coattails of Jackson because he was the vice president.
Oh.
So, and the Democrat Party was strong all the way up until Lincoln.
Okay.
They were very strong and held on, except for a couple interviews of the Whig Party.
Okay. So we will definitely dive into it.
Yes, sir.
Sorry
if I took too long.
It's quite all right.
That's okay.
No, it's interesting, and I interrupted you, so it's all good.
Okay, good.
And the reason it's good to take a little while on that one is because the latter part of it is happening in 1835 and 36.
That's correct. Right? That's correct.
The Alamo, 1836. So, now we're gonna take a little 30-second break, and we don't do advertising or anything, but I need to get a sip of water and get ready for the next half of the show. So we're gonna replay the intro, and you can see if you can figure out what tune it is, and we will be
name that tune
right back. Well, our mics were off, so you didn't get to hear it, but Uncle Bocce said that was his favorite part of the show.
That's right.
That's true.
Not necessarily the break, but the intro.
Intro, yeah.
It's just kind of a catchy little jingle.
It is. I love it.
Name that tune.
Produced for us specially by a gentleman in South America.
That's right.
That we contracted to do it over the web, which is pretty cool. So tonight is the Alamo Prelude. I've got a book in my hand. The title of it is The Blood of Heroes, the 13-day struggle for the Alamo and the sacrifice that forged a nation. It's written by a gentleman by the name of James Donovan, who is a world-renowned scholar. He is known for doing extreme research before he publishes anything. We're going to try to reach out and see if we can find Mr. Donovan and have a conversation with him, because I learned in reading The Jacket that he lives in Dallas, Texas. I read this book when it was first published in 2012, and I've read it one more time since, and now I'm going to read it the third time before we go back on the air, at least scan it and go through some of the high points. And the reason that I like this one, and I'm going to kind of use it as a guide, is because it spends the first third of the book talking about what happened before this 13-day siege of the Alamo. And as you have figured out, hopefully, from the format of the Doc Owen Show, we like to do our research and figure out what the precedences are, what the preceding events are that lead up to, and not necessarily cause, but influence the current day. I mean, it's a ripple effect. It goes all the way through. So if you dig deep enough and look closely enough, you can see a thread and you can connect dots And then that gives you a better understanding of where we are today. It's not quite so frustrating. So let's talk just the three of us, and you guys out there as well can contribute if you want to log into Spreaker.com and find the show, and Anna's sitting there ready to go at the keyboard and respond. So what do we know? What do we think we know? What's the general gist of people's impression when they hear "Remember the Alamo"? What Uncle Bocce? You're from New Jersey.
Yeah.
All right. You've been here quite a while.
Yes, I'm a Texan now.
Okay. If it makes you happy. So, for the sake of the radio show, we'll say you're a Texan. So, I mean, you didn't grow up with that in your hip pocket.
That's correct.
You know, you didn't grow up playing cowboys and Indians out in the front yard, running up and down, hollering, "Remember the Alamo," like some of us did. Mm-hmm. So, you know, what's your impression when you hear the Alamo? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I mean, what does it do for you, against you? How do you feel?
Yeah.
This is a feely type question.
Well, yeah, we learned about the Alamo, even though I lived in New Jersey and had my education there.
Really?
We knew about the Alamo, but we may not have known the specifics about it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And what I remember is that it's where a lot of good people met the end of their lives there.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And people, and the people I remember, of course, are Davy Crockett and Daniel Boone.
Well, yeah,
mostly
because they hit the
they
big
were-
screen. They were on film.
That's right.
They made movies about it.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So that was the extent of it.
But you didn't necessarily come away with a feeling of pride or a feeling. It didn't.
No.
It didn't engender. It was a bullet point in history.
That's exactly, yeah.
Right.
Pretty much.
I mean,
so.
it was a big deal. It was a bullet point in history. This is how Texas got settled. Mm-hmm. It all started with the Alamo, la-di-da, blah-di-blah, right? Mm-hmm. And that's why the border is now at the Rio Grande and
Right.
on to the next chapter, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. And that's good. And that's possibly the same impression a lot of people have.
That's true.
I mean, until they know of it, they come to San Antonio. They know to go visit it, but and they may get involved and read some of the plaques and sort of learn a little bit more about it, but it's still an external element. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's external to their being. Mm-hmm. It's something over there that these guys did, and it was really a whale of a fight, and
Right.
They defended it, as you said, to their death.
Right.
I mean, they fought to the finish
That's right.
and lost. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't realize that. They lost. Emma?
Yeah, it's very similar.
Okay, but
To
you
Uncle
you
Bob.
grew up here.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, well, I had a lot of respect for it. I knew
Okay.
a lot of people died there, and I believe we went there field trips, know, and I have a lot of respect for it. The Alamo. It's a historic landmark
For sure. For sure.
I know a lot of people lost their lives, like Uncle Bocce said.
Right.
Yeah, but really the connection, like you're talking about.
Maybe not so much.
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yes, because I'm from here.
Yep.
You know.
But I think maybe it's a guy thing.
Yeah, it could be.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I have a lot of respect for it.
Oh,
Yeah.
I understand
Yeah.
that. That wasn't the inference.
And there's a Masonic tie and all that too.
There is. Oh, well, you can certainly fill us in on that. Okay. And the reason I asked it, because I grew up here. I was born in Tennessee during World War II. Spent my first 6 months there, and then as soon as the war was over and Dad came home, we moved back to Texas. And so I don't know why. Maybe it's my parent. My heritage is right here in San Antonio, and so maybe it's my. I've always had a real internalized feeling about the Alamo for some reason or another. It was never sort of external to me. You know what I'm saying? It's part of. It's just absolutely, totally a part of who I am.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
And there's others who feel that way. There's a group here in town that we're going to have on the show that are descendants of the defenders of the Alamo. I mean, we're gonna bring some people through here as this series. And as a matter of fact, if you're interested, at some point this summer, I don't know exactly when it is, but we will find out. There is every year there's an Alamo reenactment that goes on in down. I think it goes on down around the Alamo or someplace close.
Right in front of it.
Right.
In Breckenridge? No, not Breckenridge.
I don't know.
Right in front of the Alamo, I believe.
Oh, there's one. Oh, okay. Because I
think
know
so.
there's Bracketville.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I know that was.
So it's interesting you bring. Well, no, it's interesting you bring that up because that's the main thing we're going to get into with this book, "The Blood of Heroes" by James Donovan. That was what I liked so much about it. Are you aware that before the Texians, as they were called, could lose the Alamo, that they had to take it first? It was in the hands of the Mexicans.
I did not know
You
that.
did not know that, did you? I mean,
No, I didn't.
We don't think about things like that. And the first part of this book talks about what's going on leading up to this event called the Alamo, which was a 13. All it was a 13-day period in Texas history. But there were a lot of things leading up to it, not the least of which was the land grab that was going on in the United States of America.
There you go.
Driven by Andrew Jackson
Yeah.
to the Mississippi, which for you, those of you not familiar, we are west of the Mississippi. Most of the people that were here in Texas were getting out ahead of that land grab and had made a deal with the Mexican government to be left alone and be given X amount of property if they would come to Texas.
Yes.
All right?
Yes.
That was the deal. And then the Mexican government reneged and said, we lied. Y'all are being too prosperous. We're going to start taxing you, and you're going to start obeying our laws.
There you go.
And the Texans said, we kind of like it here. We're not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere. We're not running. That was not the Alamo was not the first battle.
Right.
That was Goliad, if I remember correctly. And the problem was that the Mexican army, led by a fellow by the name of General Santa Anna, all right, was absolutely ruthless.
Yes.
They when they won, they massacred every man, woman, and child. Goliad, they piled them all up and burned them.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Think about these things.
Oh, wow.
That's what they were heathens. This army was. And that's what they were. I don't want to get too far into what happened after the Alamo until we get, but that's what made the event so galvanizing. Was the treatment after the fact.
Yeah. Do you think that they got that from the Spanish conquistadors? That ruthless kind of... I'm just a question. I don't know.
I don't know the answer.
Okay.
I've never delved that much into the other side.
Okay.
As to the logic or the behind their actions.
Yeah.
Maybe we could get somebody on the show that did.
If there's there's somebody out there, I'm sure there is. I mean, there's a wealth of Texas historians in and around us. So these are this is the type of input that we would like to have from scholars on the matter, not people with just a idea, but scholars that have actually done the research. That's why we're going to use this Donovan book as kind of the guide. So I mean, you answered my question. I think that what the three of us represent is a pretty good mix or a pretty good feeling of what's in the audience.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We're going to have some members of the audience that have internalized this thing called the Alamo. And those, in this coming fight with the United Nations, in my opinion, those are probably the most dangerous characters
Yes.
in terms of opposing their takeover. Because there are people in this world, and very close to San Antonio, if not here. I am of the opinion there are a lot of people alive today that feel just as strongly about the Alamo as did Davy Crockett and the others who died there. And that sort of concerns me. I won't say it scares me. It concerns me.
Sure.
That if the wrong thing goes off at the wrong time, you've triggered something that you didn't know you were going to trigger.
Yes.
You follow me?
Yes.
I mean, if you did know you were going to trigger it, then shame on you for doing it. But there are also an awful lot of people who, I mean, the phrase came about after the defeat.
Yes.
Remember, the Alamo was not, I mean, and it was because of the way they were treated.
Yes.
The phrase that the world knows, remember the Alamo, didn't actually come up until we tracked Santa Ana down to the bottom land called San Jacinto.
San
Texas.
Jacinto.
Right, you know. So, which is why there's a San Jacinto monument. Because that's where we got it back.
Yes.
So, give us your feedback. I mean, what do you think? Are we going down the right path?
I think we are.
I think so.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm more knowledgeable of the Alamo since I came to Texas than I was before.
Sure.
And I do consider that more than just a shrine. I consider it a sacred land.
It was
because they're buried there.
Well,
not only that,
it was a mission.
But it was a mission. Right.
Catholic mission.
And those kinds of things are just like the Independence Hall in Philadelphia.
Right.
That's a sacred place.
Well, it's very sacred to Texas and actually United States history.
It absolutely
I mean, we're going to tie that down, and the reason I'm going to keep preaching on that because we're broadcast worldwide, and we actually have more listeners outside of our home base than we do at home.
Yes.
You know, up and down both coasts. And we need you folks out there to join us in this fight. We need your support. We're going to need your prayers. I'm not asking for money, but we're going to need your support. This is something that we absolutely must stop the United Nations dead cold in their tracks from taking over this piece of history. No matter what they think is in the best interest of the rest of the world. Quite frankly, as a Texan, I couldn't give a bull sugar less what the rest of the world thinks about my crumbling down little piece of history. We'll just let it crumble for the next 2 or 3 or 4 or 500 years, whatever it is, until it finally melts away into dust. And then don't walk on the dust because that's our damn dust.
That's right.
That's true.
And you know what I'm saying? And maybe something will come along we can spray it with and prop it up. But we do not need glass walls around it. We don't need it painted. We don't need... It is what it is.
That's right.
Yeah.
Learn
Respect it for what it is.
and this show is going to try to teach you what that's about.
And I'm excited.
Front row. Time to go. You have been listening to the Doc Owen Show. Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it. Now go out there this week and take care, pay attention, and God bless.
Bye-bye, folks. God bless.